Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Project Spectrum webinar about your data and CMMC. My name is Rick and I'm with Move America. Happy to be here on behalf of the Project Spectrum team. I am actually coming to you live from the eMerge Americas conference in Miami, Florida. And let me tell you, yes, the weather down here is nice. It's sunny, it's beautiful, it's hot. So I'm happy that I'm inside in a nice air-conditioned area. But I will be talking to you today about your data in CMMC. And so we're going to go ahead and kick this off since we're a few minutes late because we were having just a bit of a technical difficulty. And we're going to hope that all those gremlins have gone away. Very first thing that we're going to do, we introduce me. So I have been working with the Project Spectrum team for several years now on the outreach side of things. And remember, Project Spectrum is a Department of Defense recognized cybersecurity awareness initiative. And they're providing all of the tools and training and resources that businesses need to increase their cybersecurity awareness and maintain compliance in accordance with DoD contracting requirements. Because that's really what Project Spectrum is all about. But we're going to get into that in just a little bit. So a couple of things just to make sure that you understand. Throughout this presentation, we're going to make sure that your microphone is muted. I believe that they're muted automatically, but just please make sure that your microphone stays muted. Make sure that you're understanding that your name is displayed for others to see. That includes on the recording of this webinar and the transcript. So just letting you know that this is being recorded and transcribed. If there's anybody who is uncomfortable having their name displayed on the webinar or on the transcript, please go ahead and drop off the webinar now, and we will let you know when the replay is available. And then if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat. So we will go ahead and review those questions. We're going to answer them. We've got the Project Spectrum team on hand, and they're going to be answering questions within the chat. And then we'll also have some that we'll read at the end of the webinar. So you can ask your question during the webinar at any time. So our agenda for today, again, we're going to talk to you a little bit about Project Spectrum and our mission, which is to educate businesses on the landscape of cybersecurity. Then we're going to talk about the overview of federal regulations for safeguarding data and information. That's the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program, also known as CMMC. Then we've got more alphabet soup for you. We've got FCI and CUI, Federal Contract Information. We're going to talk about what federal contract information is and how it relates. And then we're also going to do that with controlled unclassified information as well. So when you're talking about Project Spectrum has been around for quite a few years now. We are here to help bolster homeland defense. And a lot of people may say, well, that's being a little dramatic. No, it isn't. You have to understand that cybersecurity is huge. And there's no winning cybersecurity. It is not a destination, it's a journey. And you have to keep going on that journey. Now, Project Spectrum is endorsed and we are sponsored by the DoD Office of Small Business Programs. They initiated Project Spectrum to bring that comprehensive platform with all of the tools and all of the training and all of the resources that businesses need. And again, when we say businesses, we mean any size business. Doesn't matter how many employees you have, doesn't matter how big or small your facility is. We want to make sure that every business has access to these tools that are going to help them to increase cybersecurity awareness, maintain their compliance in accordance with DoD contracting requirements. Project Spectrum also advances national security priorities because you got to remember, that strong national security really starts with the industrial base because the businesses that provide the technological solutions to reestablish deterrence and modernize the defense industrial base, they're under attack all the time. So we want to make sure that they have all of the tools and training and resources they need to bolster their cybersecurity. Project Spectrum also protects homeland and our warfighters by providing businesses with the most up-to-date cybersecurity compliance education, tools, and training. The best part about all of this with Project Spectrum is that Project Spectrum is available at no cost to the users. We want to make sure that you understand that. There's no cost to register for Project Spectrum and utilize the resources that Project Spectrum offers when it comes to cybersecurity. So we talked about this a few moments ago, but I want to make sure that I'm re-emphasizing this. The defense industrial base in the United States is under attack, and it is under attack constantly. Small and medium businesses are right there on the front line. 43% of all cyber attacks target those small and medium businesses. Only 28% of all small and medium businesses, not just the ones that are targeted, all of them, only 28% have plans to mitigate those attacks. 74% of the cybersecurity breaches are unfortunately caused by human error. We always refer to that as the problem exists between the keyboard and the chair. And that really does happen, unfortunately, because you think you're doing a good thing. You think that you're helping your boss with a last minute presentation by clicking this link and putting in some information. And the next thing you know, your network is compromised. The cost of a cyber attack, it ranges wildly. Some of them, a couple $100, less than $1,000. Some of them into the hundreds of thousands of dollars and even more. And remember, that's only the cost when you're talking about dollars and cents. It doesn't talk about reputation. It doesn't talk about what you're losing when it comes to losing contracts. Doesn't talk about what your downtime when your offices are closed because your network is offline. So again, all of that factors in. When it comes to those dollars and cents, all of the lost revenue, the lost reputation, whatever you might pay to try to get your data back because they're charging you a ransom and you feel that it's better to just pay it because your insurance is going to pay you back, your insurance isn't going to pay you back unless you have very specialized cybersecurity insurance. And guess what? Only 14% of small and medium businesses have that proper insurance coverage for those cyber attacks. And then you look over on the right side of this slide. Why are small and medium businesses targeted? Well, quite frankly, because they have the intellectual property that others really want. Threat actors, nation states, they want to get to that intellectual property. Also, small and medium businesses within the defense industrial base, they have access to sensitive government information. And they also have that interconnection with the larger defense contractors. All of that plays into the fact as to why they are great targets. They have access to the supply chain. And then sometimes there's political and ideological motivation. Again, a nation state comes along, they find out that you're developing a technology. They don't want that technology to go to market because it's going to make their lives worse. They're going to target you. So we always have to make sure that you're understanding that it is imperative for you to know that you are constantly under attack when it comes to being a part of the defense industrial base. So really, that's where the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, came in. So CMMC was the DoD's way of trying to make sure that the businesses that are working with the Department of Defense are prepared, that you have a certain level of cybersecurity awareness and that you are at a certain level of compliance with that awareness and the different actions that you need to take. So they have the CMMC model. It used to be 5 levels, and thank goodness they got rid of that because that really confused everybody. Now it's down to 3 levels, and you've got the first level, level 1, which is foundational. This is basic data safeguarding. This is only for businesses that handle FCI data. Then you've got level 2. This is a little more advanced, which is why they call it advanced. This is where you're enhancing data, and you've got to really make sure that you're enhancing that data safeguarding for anybody that handles CUI. And again, that's controlled unclassified information. And then you kind of have a split there. You have prioritized and non-prioritized. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. Then you've got CMMC level 3. This is expert. The majority of small and medium businesses are not going to need to get to CMMC level 3, but there are ones that sometimes do. This is really where it's high capacity safeguarding of CUI data that is handled by the highest priority DoD programs and includes an additional 24 requirements. So you see all of the different requirements there. You've got 15, you've got 110, you've got 134. It's all right there. But again, it's understanding what level do you need to be at in order to do business with the Department of Defense. And that's what we're going to try to help clear up a little bit today. Because understanding your data really enables you to identify the level of compliance you require. So again, you're looking at FCI or CUI. If you're handling federal contract information, any organization, you need that CMMC level 1 compliance. Then you've got controlled unclassified information. The CUI is where you come in, where you might have to go to level 2. And again, on very rare occasion, you'll have to go up to level 3. So when you're understanding the differences between FCI and CUI, we immediately go to the FAR clause for FCI and we go to DFARS for CUI, because that's where you're going to get those very specific definitions. The FCI is sensitive, but it's not classified information. It's provided by or generated for the government under a contract. And we have some examples over on the right-hand side of the screen. Contract information, organizational charts. You would think that this isn't something that you have to protect, but it really is, particularly when it comes to social engineering. We've all heard that term. Process documentation, contract performance reports, the RFP or RFI responses, because again, when you're responding to when you're submitting your proposal, a lot of times you might get access to those other proposals or to the other responses or to the questions that are being asked. And again, that's something that really needs to be protected, because in the wrong hands, that could do a lot of damage. Then you've got controlled unclassified information. And again, it goes right back to the DFARS clause 252.204-7012. This is a broad category of sensitive information. Now remember, it's still not classified, but it requires safeguarding and dissemination of security controls pursuant to federal laws, regulations, and policies. And again, you have the examples here on the right side of the screen. You've got that proprietary business information. You definitely don't want that getting into the wrong hands. You've got the unclassified controlled technical information, those technical plans, those technical documents. We don't want those going elsewhere either. Sensitive but unclassified, or for official use only, or law enforcement sensitive. Those are a couple of designations, again, that fall under the CUI category. So we want to make sure that you're protecting all of that data. So again, we'll dive into this a little deeper, because sometimes we always say it's the rule of 3. The first time you hear new information, it's new. The second time, it's a little more familiar and you're getting a little better at it. By the third time, you're starting to understand. So again, when you're talking about FCI, this sensitive information really is related to defense systems, technologies, and strategies. Unauthorized access to this information is what really could compromise national security, and it gives those nation states an advantage. So why do you have to protect FCI? Because again, a lot of people might say, well, my org chart isn't really that big, or people knowing who are part of my information, that's not really something. Well, it really is something, because what you need to do is maintain the integrity of government operations. And again, any type of advantage you can give a threat actor or a nation state, we don't want to do that. We don't want to give them that advantage. So it's always making sure that the government operations continue. We want to ensure that sensitive information doesn't fall into the wrong hands, because they will find a way to use it against you and against the United States. Now, again, you're talking about valuable intellectual property, including trade secrets or even financial data related to government contracts. This is not information you want going elsewhere. Protecting that information helps to maintain the competitive edge that U.S. companies have, and it presents that economic espionage. Protecting FCI also ensures fair competition in the bidding process for government contracts. It prevents companies from gaining that unfair advantage through unauthorized access to information. You don't ever want to give them a leg up. You want to make sure that you are keeping things level, or you're keeping us on the side that's really moving forward and keeping them a little bit behind. So when it comes to CMMC level 1, what is it that you need to do if you in order to achieve that. Well, the good news is that it's really all about self-attestation. You have annual self-assessments for all DIB contractors that handle FCI data. That is required. But again, it's an annual self-assessment. Now, in order to be compliant, what you need to do is you need all of the findings to result in either met or not applicable status. You need to make, and then you don't need to have plans of action and milestones at level 1. That's something that a lot of people worry about, the POAMs. You don't have to have that at level 1. They're not permitted. Self-assessment results are submitted via the Supplier Performance Risk System, or SPRS. Whenever you hear SPRS, it's not those things that they use in the old Westerns. It is all about uploading that score into that system to let them know that you are compliant. Now, when conducting those self-assessments, the CMMC certification is not required or issued at this level. Again, you don't have to go to a certified third-party assessor. You don't have to have anything in writing that says that you are CMMC certified. You're simply taking that self-assessment, uploading the score into the SPRS system, and then you have met your level 1 compliance. Organizations that want to reach level 1, Project Spectrum is the absolute perfect, in my opinion, and I may be a little biased, but I will say that you're on this webinar, so you must think there's value too. Project Spectrum, again, no cost resources. We are making sure that you can conduct those assessments and produce those scores, and we do all of that at no cost to the user, because there are people that will charge you for that. And again, it's all self-attestation. You don't need to have somebody else come in and certify anything. Now, what does Project Spectrum offer? Well, we have online courses that are related to FCI data. So you could see we have a series of training courses on CMMC level 1, a range of virtual training courses that are focused on all of this, on how to protect FCI, how to know what FCI is. So you see these courses here. Level 1 courses can be related to access control, external connections. You've got the control public information, which is FCI data, identification and authentication, media disposal, physical protection, boundary protection, flaw remediation and malicious code protection, update malicious code protection, and system file scanning for the federal contract information. So you have all of that information available to you. All of these courses are there. And believe me, they really do help. I used to host the CMMC level 1 webinar where we were talking about the different control domains. And there were some people that just didn't realize that you have to have somebody guarding all of the doors to your facility. If you have a door that's just open, you're at risk. You're not going to meet the criteria for for CMMC level 1. You know, even the side door that people sneak out to gather some fresh air, or maybe have some not fresh air enter their lungs. All of that, if that door is unlocked and anybody can basically get in by knocking on it and having somebody open the door and let them in, that is, that's something that really falls under that physical protection. And you really need to make sure that you're taking care of that. And that's what these courses can really help you do. Now, let's jump over to the other side of the alphabet soup, which is CUI, Controlled Unclassified Information. I remember one of our old cyber advisors used to call this CUI. I think some people still do, but I just refer to it as CUI. Now, according to the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency, CUI is government-created or owned information that requires safeguarding or dissemination controls consistent with applicable laws, regulations, and government-wide policies. See, CUI is a safeguarding system for this unclassified information. It's a step up, obviously, from FCI. And even though this information isn't classified, it's still sensitive. It is still important, and it still requires protection. Now, remember, CUI by itself, there's no CUI classification. There are several classifications that fall under the category of CUI. So you can't ever say that something is classified as CUI. So we talked about this before, the for official use only or sensitive but unclassified designations and markings. All of those are part of CUI. So you really have to be on the lookout for what is CUI. So how do you know if a contract requires you to handle and protect controlled unclassified information? All of that needs to be spelled out specifically in the solicitation. It will let you know what level of CMMC you need to have in order to bid on that contract. The federal entity that is requesting services is the one that determines CUI requirements for both unclassified and classified contracts. Now, CUI needs to be identified in the issuing DD 254, the request for quote, or the request for proposal, and any supporting contract documentation that comes along after that, it will also be spelled out in there. So again, the contract is really what's going to drive you when it comes to understanding whether or not you're going to be handling CUI and you need to jump up to CMMC level 2. And you need to remember that all CUI is not the same, because CUI you have prioritized and you have non-prioritized. Depending on the prioritization, you may need to follow that different process to obtain CMMC level 2 certification. And this is what we're referring to. This is where it's a split or bifurcation. Bifurcation, one or the other. I'll just say split. The split occurs when you have contractors that handle either prioritized or non-prioritized CUI data acquisitions. And the minimum passing score is 88 out of 110. So when you've got the non-prioritized, this is the less sensitive CUI data acquisitions. This is, again, where you're talking about annual self-assessments. You can create financial savings by using Project Spectrum's assessment tools, training, and cyber advisory preparedness services. We will work with you to help you get to level 2, and we do it at no cost to you. But again, when you're talking about the non-prioritized or less sensitive CUI data, CMMC certification is not required or issued. You're not going to get a big plaque that says I'm CMMC certified. You just know that you are. How do you know that you are? By taking that self-assessment and uploading those scores to the Supplier Performance Risk System, or SPRS. Then the second split. This is where we're talking about prioritized or sensitive CUI data acquisitions. This is when you have to have that third-party assessment, and it happens every 3 years. You have a triennial cycle of assessments. Certification needs to be performed by CMMC certified third-party assessors, C3PAOs. That's the acronym for those that have heard that. Businesses can, again, make sure that you're creating a financial savings by using Project Spectrum's assessment tools, training, and cyber advisory preparedness services. Now, a lot of people do come along and ask us, okay, so you're going to help prepare me for level 2, and you're going to help prepare me for that third-party assessment, and you're going to perform it, right? Wrong. Project Spectrum does not perform the assessments. We simply get you ready for the assessments. And again, what you need to do is have that assessment done by a certified third-party assessor, and then that gets submitted to the CMMC Enterprise Mission Assurance Support Services System, also known as EMAS. So when you're talking about CMMC level 2, you can check out the National Archives Record Administration, or NARA. They have an organizational index groupings, and we've got a link for you right here. We'll also pass it along to you in the chat. If the CUI data that your company handles falls into any of these category data types, this is when you need to be assessed by that C3PAO in order to achieve CMMC level 2 certification. When it comes to defense, it's controlled technical information, or DoD critical infrastructure security information, naval nuclear propulsion information, privileged safety information, unclassified controlled nuclear information when it comes under the category of defense. Again, all of these categories are there. If you have information that falls under any of these categories, This is when you need to take the CMMC level 2 split that goes for the prioritized side, and you need to get that certified third-party assessment. So when it comes to protecting controlled unclassified information, you need to make sure that all of this data falls inside a controlled environment. There needs to be at least one physical barrier to prevent authorization or unauthorized access to CUI that is present in the physical environment, like documents. As much as we try to be a paperless society, we are still going to be a society that is going to have paper because paper is easier. Power goes out, internet is down, paper still works. So again, you need to make sure that if you have that physical information, you have those blueprints, those plans, those documents, whatever, you need to be aware of a few things like potential snoopers. You need to make sure that anybody that has access is somebody who gets in and out with a badge so that you're constantly having a record of who's going in and coming out. You need to make sure that this information is stored in a locked container, locked file cabinet, locked desk drawer, locked office, locked closet, whatever it is. And then you also need to make sure that your administrative personnel have oversight over this type of information. See, these controlled environments, whether they're physical or they're digital, are restricting access to CUI. It's only those who need it for legitimate government functions that are able to access this information. Remember, you don't want everybody within your organization to have access to all of the data all of the time. You need to make sure that you're prioritizing that and saying, okay, who really needs to see this? By doing that, you're guaranteeing the protection of delicate materials and taking the precaution that you need to take with CUI. Now, when it comes to sharing and accessing CUI, the standard, anybody who needs to see it under lawful government purpose, you can share it. If there's no lawful government purpose to access that information, it should not be shared with somebody. So what does that mean? Again, taking that deeper dive. Any activity, mission, function, operation, or endeavor that the U.S. government authorizes or recognizes as within the scope of its legal authorities or the legal authorities of non-executive branch entities like state and local law enforcement. So again, any of that information should not be shared unless there is a lawful government purpose to do so. How can Project Spectrum help? We have quite a few ways. We have the Controlled Unclassified Information, or CUI, for contractors online course. Again, no cost to the user. Register for Project Spectrum. You are able to get access to this course. And this is part of our series of courses on CMMC Level 2. But this entire virtual training course is really focused on anybody who wants to be a contractor within the defense industrial base, making sure that you understand what CUI is, how you handle it, how you shouldn't handle it, that sort of thing. Again, you're talking about defining CUI, taking a much deeper dive, the history and importance of CUI, how to identify and utilize those CUI markings and other document markings. And then, of course, last but not least, handling CUI, because that's very important. When you're talking about Project Spectrum, again, you're talking about a bunch of tools, training, and resources that are available to you at no cost. We do not do anything with your data, because that is one thing that somebody has asked in the past. Okay, so there's no cost to the user, but what are you doing with my data? Absolutely nothing. All we're doing with your data is storing it for you to utilize, to upload it to the SPURS system, your self-assessments, what courses you've taken, what articles you've read on the Project Spectrum website. This is all part of what we're tracking, but what do we do with it? Nothing. We simply have it there for your benefit to utilize where you need to use it. We are, again, sponsored by the DoD Office of Small Business Programs. That is how we are able to offer these resources to you at no cost. Now, we talked about our training courses. Those are invaluable. but we have plenty of other resources that are going to help you as you're going along your cybersecurity journey. We have security system plan templates. We have the plans of action and milestone templates, because people have come to us and have said, so if we pay you money, instead of the no cost, if we pay you money, will you write the poem for me? No, we will not, but we will help guide you through the process. Make sure that we do that. How do we do that? We do that through our cyber advisory services. Our cyber advisors are some of the top people in the industry. They have been in your shoes. They have worked in industry. They have gone through CMMC certification. So they speak the language. They also know that the businesses that are on the smaller side or less experienced contractors don't have all of the resources to just be able to pick up the phone and ask somebody or pass this off to somebody. So again, they can help guide your people through all of this. We have a self-assessment toolkit that, again, will help you understand where you are and where you need to be. We have a cyber readiness dashboard that, again, is going to help keep track of your progress. When you're trying to generate that score for the SPURS system, we can help you with that. We can also tell you how to upload it. And then we've got that remediation plan template, because as much as we want to say that you're never going to be the victim of a cyber attack, you're possibly going to be, or probably going to be, the victim of a cyber attack. And so we just want to make sure that you understand that all of this information is available to you, and you have that remediation plan for when bad things happen. Then we also have our education and information services. We have cybersecurity training and education. We put out blogs and news items on a regular basis. We also have briefings like this one, where again, we're telling you what's going on, giving you information, and giving you more information on how to take the next step forward. That's what's very important, and that's what we are trying to make sure happens for you. All right, so we have gone through a lot of information fairly quickly, but again, we're trying to make sure that we're giving you this brief overview. So we've been answering questions as we go along, but we're going to make sure that we're going to give you this one as well. Would it be safe to assume that Project Spectrum only provides learning material, but they're not the accreditation body? Correct. We do not accredit anybody. We are not a C3PAO. Actually, that would kind of be a conflict of interest, because again, C3PAOs are paid. All of that, has to happen. They are a paid service. We're paid by the U.S. Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. So for us to be a C3PAO, we could not offer the no-cost tools, training, and resources that we are able to offer you. So we want to make sure that you understand that. Can I set up a team and see what they have and have not completed? Yes, that is something that we've been able to do within our dashboard. If you are part of an organization, you identify as part of an organization, people can see what other members of that organization have accomplished on our dashboard. You're able to see this is what you have done. You're able to see this is what other team members have done. Then we have another question. Can SMBs use the briefing or information from Project Spectrum in the company's CMMC approach strictly from an educational perspective for staff members? Absolutely. We do highly recommend that you share this information with your colleagues. We recommend that you highly recommend you share this information throughout your organization, even other other subcontractors that you work with or other businesses that you work with. We're more than happy for you to share this information, because again, we're providing it at no cost to you. We want to make sure that you're able to let people know what Project Spectrum has to offer and able to take advantage of those resources. So all of that is very much available to you. We want to make sure that you're doing that. Help us get the word out. It really does help us. How do I validate that a DIBCO has level 1 self-assessment in SPURS? I'm going to speak off of memory, and I'm hoping that I'm not taking this incorrectly, but I believe what you're asking, is you want to make sure that somebody that you're working with, whether it's another contractor or somebody who's going to be a sub to you or someone who's a prime to you, or when you're trying to find out, whether or not they've achieved CMMC level 1 within SPURS. When you upload the scores into SPURS, again, it will say whether or not you have met the requirements. And so that is something that that is information that the company who's uploading it will get. That's information that they can take a screenshot of, or, I believe sometimes in the past, from my knowledge, they were getting emails about it. Again, you've successfully uploaded. You're now able to bid on contracts at this particular level. All of that information is available. What is the crossover line from small, medium business to larger, where Project Spectrum would not be available? This is a great question. There is none. Project Spectrum is available to any size organization. Doesn't matter if it's small, medium, large, extra large, or jumbo. And again, I'm saying that a little glibly, but I do want to make sure that you understand. It really is, Project Spectrum resources are available to any organization. We don't ask for an organization size. We don't track your revenues. We don't do any of that. We don't say, how many employees do you have? Oh, you have one too many employees. You either have to lay someone off or Project Spectrum can help you. No, none of that is happening. We are making sure that we are giving you the same access, giving everybody the same access to the tools, training, and resources that Project Spectrum has available. Let's see, self-assessment every year or every 3 years. Again, when you're talking about self-assessment, the self-assessment for CMMC level 1 and the self-assessments for CMMC level 2, where it's non-prioritized CUI data, that's self-assessment every year. When you're talking about CMMC level 2, where it is the prioritized CUI data, that's assessment every 3 years, but that's not self-assessment. That's assessment through a certified third-party assessor organization, or again, the wonderful acronym is C3PAO. Who is responsible for marking CUI documents or communications? Again, what you need to remember is that, CUI is not, there's no CUI marking, but there are markings that fall under CUI. Typically, it would be the government, or it would be the contracting office. Any information that is coming in or going out as part of that contract, that is where the contracting officer would be the one that would make that designation. Government agencies, again, yes, the issuing agency, prime contractors may often do that as well, because again, they're going to be very well versed on that. The more experienced contractors, they're going to have that information. They're going to know what is CUI and what is not CUI, and they're going to mark it appropriately with the appropriate markings. When are each responsible for marking documents or communications? Again, typically it's when that information is shared. Any information that is shared is going to have that designation to it. Why is Project Spectrum an IO domain and not a government domain? The simple answer is that we are not a government organization. Project Spectrum is, we are sponsored and endorsed by the U.S. Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. We are run through Echelon, which is a government contractor. And so that is why we are not a .gov or a .mil. We simply have, and again, this was one of those answers. I asked the question when I first started working for Project Spectrum years ago, where you have, why is it an IO? And it was simply at the time when Project Spectrum was being developed, that was the domain that was available for us to get the Project Spectrum name, because there are actually other programs known as Project Spectrum that have absolutely nothing to do with cybersecurity. So .com, .org, they were all taken. So .io was one of the available domains that we were able to use. If I have both non-prioritized and prioritized data, do I need to do both annual and triennial assessments? This is something that I'm going to refer back to our cybersecurity advisors. My guess is that the answer is you would only have to do the prioritized, because that should cover the non-prioritized. What I will say is that having that self-assessment for the non-prioritized is going to be helpful, because again, it's going to let you know whether or not you're able to handle it. But if you're able to handle if you're able to handle prioritized CUI data, I would think that you would be able to handle non-prioritized CUI data. At this point, I'm going to bring in my colleague, Mark Chisholm, very valued colleague here at Project Spectrum. Mark, I see we've been answering a lot of questions and a lot of things are flying back and forth in the chat. Are there any that I'm missing or any that I might have really flubbed an answer to?
Not that I'm aware of. We've been tackling them quite well. Thanks, Rick. Just a couple more that just came through. What info do you share with the government or military?
If I'm correct, we do not share any information with the government or military. We will provide data to the government, particularly the Office of Small Business Programs, letting them know how many businesses we are helping, how many registered users there are for Project Spectrum, how many trainings we have done, how many self-assessments have been taken. But all of that is just overall general data. We do not share your data with anybody. Again, we're making sure that your data is completely protected. We don't share it. We don't sell it. We don't utilize it for anything other than communicating with you at Project Spectrum. So that is one thing I will strongly recommend, because we used to have people that wanted to sign up for Project Spectrum and they would sign up with a dummy email address. When you have mickey@mouse.com, you know that you're not going to get anybody on the other side of that email. So we want to make sure you're sharing your actual email with us. We promise you, we're not going to use it for anything other than to communicate with you about Project Spectrum offerings, Project Spectrum upcoming webinars, Project Spectrum news, all of that information. We want to make sure that we have that so we can share that with you, so that we can communicate back and forth with you if you have a question. That's really something that we want to make sure that we have that access to your contact information. But again, we do not share that with anybody. How do I validate another company's SPURS or CMMC status? Once again, this is kind of a tricky situation because it's a self-attestation. You have to go through all of the steps. You have to make sure that your findings are coming back as either met or not applicable. And then you're able to upload that information to the SPURS system. If you're trying to validate what somebody else is telling you, that's not something that we can necessarily say you can do. You can't reach out to the contact people at the SPURS system and say, oh, this person showed me this email. Is it valid? It's one of those things where you're going to have to sort of trust them. But I mean, the one thing you can do, again, all of the information is available on a Project Spectrum dashboard. Having someone take a screenshot of that information should be able to show you where they are within their self-assessment. If we know we ultimately need level 2 certification, does it make sense to achieve level 1 first, or should we work to level 2 from the start? This is one that, again, I think our cyber advisors are going to have one take on this, and I'm going to have another take. My take is going to be everybody needs to crawl before they walk and walk before they run. The number of domains going from CMMC level 1 to CMMC level 2, there's a huge jump there. There really is. And we had that in one of the previous slides, and it's going from like 17 or 18 domains. And again, I'm going on my memory in a very loud environment, so I'm not remembering it completely correctly, but there's a handful at CMMC level 1, and there's a whole bunch at CMMC level 2. This is where I would refer to one of those analogies about boiling the ocean or eating the entire elephant in one bite. I would say that it is best to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. I would start with CMMC level 1 and then work your way up to level 2, because again, there's a whole lot more that you think you want to accomplish, but trying to do it all at once, I would say that it's probably best to do it in steps. How do we contact Project Spectrum's cyber advisors? Definitely glad that you asked that question. On the Project Spectrum website, you are going to see an area on the page. You're going to see the little, it's at the bottom of the screen. I believe, Mark, is it a question mark?
Yes, it's a yellow or orange circle with a question mark in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
Yep. Yellow or orange, depending on how your monitor is set for colors. You're going to get that little question mark icon. You click on that and you fill out a form and you let us know what you need. And that is the best way to get in touch with us. We used to rely on email, but let me just tell you something. Email, particularly shared email boxes, we're always trying to make sure that we're getting everybody's questions answered. And sometimes you think one person's answering an email and they think somebody else is answering the email. I will tell you this. Putting your request into the Project Spectrum website down at the bottom of the site using that question mark icon, that is the absolute best way to contact us about anything, whether it's to get in touch with one of the cyber advisors, whether it is a technical question, whether it's an issue that you're having with the Project Spectrum site. That is the best way to reach us. That is monitored 24/7, 365. And then we get that information and we are able to get back to you very quickly. All right, we have another couple of questions. If a product or documentation was designated for a non-CUI project, but being used in a CUI limited dissemination export control project, how does that impact the data that was already developed? Again, I think this is one where the cyber advisors are going to have a better answer, but I will say this, that I have seen this in other contracts, particularly in my work with Move America. We work with industry, academia, and government. We're trying to bolster the defense industrial base, so we're constantly working with a lot of contracts. Data will sometimes, I'm trying to think of the term, it goes forward, it changes shape. I'm completely blanking on the word, but it evolves. Thank you. I finally got it. It evolves. Data evolves. And so sometimes what started out as FCI can evolve into CUI. Sometimes what starts out as non-prioritized CUI can evolve to prioritized CUI. So data is constantly evolving. So it is possible that sometimes when the data evolves, as the project evolves, that you are going to have to go from a level 1 to a level 2 in order to remain on that project. Is CMMC level 1 and level 2 compliance for only future contracts, or does it apply to past contracts? So I would say this, you're going to have a date that you're going to get your CMMC level 1 or CMMC level 2 compliance. Again, it's not certification, it's compliance. So you're gonna have a date, and I'm gonna say that if there is a contract that's out there, it's a past contract, but you can still bid on it. You could still become a subcontractor to somebody who's working on that contract. They're going to need to know the date that you were meeting that compliance for CMMC level 1 or CMMC level 2. But, again, it's not one of those things where if you're currently on a contract where you needed to be CMMC level 1 compliant 6 months ago, and you now get CMMC level 1 compliant, you can't claim that you were CMMC compliant 6 months ago. It goes by the date that you, again, upload that information into the SPURS system. What is the process and requirements of reporting intended or unintended disclosure of CUI to the DoD? There is a big process. This is one of those things where transparency is always key. You need to make sure that you're letting DoD know that information has been shared. There is an entire process about that. Again, this is something that our cyber advisors can certainly help advise you with when it comes to reporting that information. And, we've always been asked the question, are there consequences? Typically, yes. It doesn't necessarily mean you're excluded from a contract, but there are things that will happen. Again, the process of reporting it, there's a very detailed process. I do believe We have information on that on the Project Spectrum site in one of our training courses. I could be slightly mistaken on that, but again, that is something that our cyber advisors can certainly help with because it is something that folks have definitely experienced in the past. Here we go with another one. What is the difference between CMMC level 1 compliance, level 1 and level 2 compliance versus certified? Again, the certification process is something that happens for CMMC level 2, where you are handling that prioritized CUI data. That is the Certified Third-Party Assessment Organization, or C3PAO. They give you CMMC level 2 certification. CMMC level 2 compliance is the split where you are on the non-prioritized side, and that is only a self-assessment. So again, we are continuing to make sure that we're answering your questions. One of the things I'm going to say is we never have enough time during these webinars to answer all of the questions that are coming on board. We are always trying to make sure that we are answering questions, and that is really where Project Spectrum comes into play. So we want to make sure that you understand that you can connect with Project Spectrum. And you can do this a number of ways. Again, go to our website, projectspectrum.io. This is where you can register, you can have your account, you can start taking your self-assessment, you can start taking the different training courses, you can access the different tools, and you can make sure that you're getting all of the resources that you need to help you along your cybersecurity compliance journey. You can reach out to us. Again, you can email us at support@projectspectrum.io. Get that email over to us. We will make sure that we're getting somebody back in touch with you to try to help you any way that we can. We also have our training webinars. Again, this is one of many training webinars that we host. We host them on a monthly basis. We're making sure that we're getting this information out to you and giving you the useful information that you need to try to move forward, or at least to try to understand a little bit better why CMMC certification is important or why cybersecurity is important. Because you get a lot of organizations that sit there and say, I'm a small mom and pop shop. I don't really need cybersecurity compliance. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Everybody does. And we try to make sure that you understand that. Our social media, you can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We are trying to make sure that we are constantly getting information out to you, to organizations, whether it's small, medium, large, extra large, or beyond. All of that information, useful information for you about cybersecurity compliance, because again, it is necessary. The defense industrial base is consistently under attack. We want to make sure that you know that there are things you can do to help protect your organization, your data, your people, and your reputation, because all of those are very important. If you are looking for information from Project Spectrum, all you need to do is get in touch with us. You can utilize that question mark icon at the bottom of our website. You can email support@projectspectrum.io. We do have people from time to time who reach out to us on social media. Let me just say that reaching out to us on social media, people will see it, but it has to get routed and rerouted. And it is always better to just use the question icon or to email us. So I see some folks chiming in saying that the information we shared today was very helpful. We are certainly grateful that you think that. Again, be on the lookout. We're going to send an email when we have our next monthly webinar. It's going to be coming up next month. It is going to be a great opportunity for you to learn more, for you to take in a lot more. And Project Spectrum is here for you. We are here with the no cost to you tools, training, and resources that are going to give you the cybersecurity compliance information you need as you go along your journey. So again, for everybody on the Project Spectrum team, Mark, Richard, the cyber advisors, thank you so much for helping out and for answering questions. For all of you who have tuned in today, thank you so much for sharing some time with us. And I do want to just give a quick little plug. We have a webinar coming up at 3 o'clock It was in the same email as the webinar for today. That's going to be talking about our Rapid Innovation Accelerator Initiative with the U.S. Department of Defense. If you can, would certainly love to have you join us for that. That's going to be a great little presentation. And again, that happens at 3 p.m. Eastern today. Still live here from eMerge America. So for the entire Project Spectrum team, this is Rick from Move America, live from the eMerge Americas conference. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you, and we wish you the best of success along your cybersecurity compliance journey. Have a great day.